Sometimes maintenance isn't about fixing something that's broken. It's about stopping something from waking up. I got the letter last Monday. No return address, no stamp, just a heavy black envelope tucked under my door like some kind of dead insect. The paper inside was thick, textured, and smelled faintly of copper, like blood dried long ago. 2 words, printed neatly at the top: maintenance overdue. Underneath that, in smaller text, site B13. There was a badge too, an old maintenance tag, rectangle, matte black. My name printed in bold white block letters, Danny Rivera, but something was wrong with it. At the bottom, where the clearance level should have been, was a symbol instead. 3 triangles pressed within a circle. It almost seemed to vibrate when you stared too long. The longer I held it, the heavier it felt, as if it wanted to sink into my hand, into my bones. I hadn't worked maintenance since I left the desert, since the summer of the blackouts, since that place they called Dreamland. You didn't talk about what you cleaned, or about what you heard beneath those cold floors, or about why they never let you work the same hallway twice. And you sure as hell didn't talk about B-level sites. B was buried. B was forbidden. I tore the letter up, flushed the shredded pieces down the toilet, drank 2 shots of bourbon fast enough to burn, and told myself it was a prank. Some bureaucratic joke, a leftover glitch from a government system that forgot I ever existed. But by Tuesday night, the humming started. At first, I thought it was the radiator, old pipes, normal decay. I spent an hour knocking on walls, tightening faucets, and tapping vents, hoping it was just faulty plumbing or bad wiring. But nothing helped. When I pressed my ear against the living room drywall, though, I swear I heard it clearly. A deep, slow hum, vibrating the bones inside my skull. Not mechanical, not electronic, alive. Wednesday morning, the water from my kitchen tap came out black. Thick, syrupy sludge clung to my skin, impossible to scrub off completely. It smelled metallic, bitter and sweet at the same time. I spat twice in the sink and wiped my hands raw with kitchen towels. Called building maintenance. No answer. I walked down to the leasing office, locked. A hand-scrawled sign was taped crookedly on the window. Closed for remediation. Tetra Real Estate Holdings. Thanks you for your patience, Tetra. I didn't remember any Tetra when I signed the lease. I didn't remember anyone. That night, Bruno refused to come inside. My dog, 80 pounds of stubborn muscle and usually fearless, just stood there whining at the threshold of the apartment. I tugged at his leash. He tugged back harder. His eyes were locked onto the far corner of the living room. The dark corner, as if something waited there. Finally, I lifted him in my arms and carried him inside, his heart thumping hard against my chest. By the time I shut the door, the humming had changed. It wasn't just a vibration anymore. It was a pulse, a rhythm, a heartbeat not my own. Thursday came, and the walls started to sweat. Tiny beads of black moisture slid down the peeling paint, pooling along the baseboards. Unease growing, I grabbed a putty knife and began scraping at the wallpaper, desperate to find something normal behind this madness. But the wallpaper peeled away too easily, like dead skin. Beneath, cracked concrete walls, pitted and crumbling, and embedded deep inside the cement, another black maintenance badge, identical to the one from the letter. My name again, my clearance number, and beneath that, in faded, scratched letters, sanguinem conservare, Latin, old blood. My stomach twisted violently. I hadn't heard that phrase in 20 years, yet it hit me like a freight train. Blood must be preserved. Those old chants. whispered rumors of sacrifices and hidden tunnels beneath Dreamland. I scraped further, frantic now. Veins, black vines, ran through the walls, pulsing faintly beneath the concrete. When I touched them, my fingertips buzzed. Not electricity, something colder, hungrier. Bruno suddenly barked, a sharp, high-pitched yelp, and bolted upstairs, claws skittering across hardwood floors. The humming grew louder, then steadied, a low, endless note filling every corner of my apartment. And that's when I heard it clearly for the first time. From upstairs, from the bedroom, from my daughter's room, a soft voice, singing. Not words, not any song I taught her. Something older, something deeper, something I had buried beneath my memories. It was the melody I'd heard once before, long ago, far below Site B. The melody we all feared, yet longed to understand. The choir, finally waking up. The humming didn't stop. It grew louder, deeper. A rhythmic pressure that burrowed into my skull, matching the frightened pounding of my heart. I ran to my daughter's room. The door slammed open, hitting the wall so hard the knob left a dent. Her bed was empty. The blankets twisted and tangled, sheets still warm from the body I couldn't find. The closet door swayed softly, opening inward to a darkness far deeper than it should have been. My heart lurched. I called her name, panic tightening around my throat. Once, twice, no answer. Just the humming, stronger now, throbbing behind every wall. It felt like the whole building had become one giant, breathing creature. I could taste the copper in the air, metallic and thick. Something twisted painfully inside my chest. Memories, buried years ago, began clawing back to the surface. This hum, this rhythmic, relentless pulse. I knew it. I'd heard it before. Years ago, deep beneath the desert. Beneath the cold, fluorescent lights and the sterile corridors of a place the world knew as Area 51. But we knew it differently. Dreamland. Dreamland was never just a base. It was a tomb, a containment site for something buried long before we got there. My old supervisors warned us about certain corridors, certain rooms where the hum was strongest. Don't look. Don't linger. Don't let it recognize you. But I had looked, and now it remembered me. My hands trembled as I tore into the closet wall. Drywall fell in chalky chunks, releasing clouds of dust that burned my lungs. I pulled aside insulation, exposing cracked, pulsing concrete laced with black veins. And there, set deep into the cold stone, was a maintenance hatch. A heavy steel panel etched with 3 overlapping triangles. Below that, stamped crudely, B13. Exactly like the site beneath Area 51. Exactly like the one we whispered about in break rooms and pretended didn't exist. But here it was, buried inside my home, hundreds of miles from the desert. I stared at that hatch, dread rising like bile in my throat. Every instinct told me to flee, to run away and never look back. But the humming, the pressure behind my eyes, it wasn't letting go. I needed to know. So against every rational thought, I grabbed the handle and pulled. The hatch groaned open, releasing stale, ancient air that crawled across my skin. A rusted ladder plunged downward into suffocating darkness. I gripped the rungs, cold and slick under my hands, and descended. 20 feet, 30. Each rung took me deeper beneath the earth, the walls closing around me tighter with every step. The darkness felt heavy, thick with something more than just humidity. At the bottom, my feet splashed into shallow water. Black, oily liquid oozing from cracked pipes overhead. I switched on my flashlight, its beam barely slicing through the dense, murky air. This wasn't an apartment sublevel. It was a tunnel. Old concrete, broken and buckled under decades of neglect. Thick black vines pulsed slowly along the walls, each heartbeat synchronized perfectly with the humming. I stepped forward cautiously, flashlight shaking in my grip. Symbols covered the corridor, etched hastily into concrete, chipped into stone, scratched frantically into the rusted steel support beams. Eyes, circles, triangles, and everywhere, repeating endlessly, was the same phrase etched in desperate script: sanguinem conservare. Preserve the blood. A cold sweat dripped down my spine. I remembered whispered chants echoing from beneath Area 51, leaking from locked doors we were told to ignore. Rituals none of us were ever supposed to know about. Further down, a rusted security locker leaned against the wall, half drowned in rot. I forced it open. Inside were crumbling papers, blueprints smeared by water damage. I pulled them out carefully, unfolding faded diagrams. My stomach twisted violently. They weren't housing plans. They were containment schematics, stamped with Area 51's official code. B13 site, Choir Preservation Complex. Containment level Sigma, anomalous sound transmission. At the bottom corner, another stamp. Property of Tetra Holdings, Dreamland Preservation Trust. They hadn't just built my apartment complex. They'd built the entire city over a buried nightmare. The humming wasn't just here. It was everywhere beneath us, spreading quietly through hidden veins beneath streets, beneath schools, beneath homes. I heard whispers now, woven into the hum. Voices, human but hollow, speaking words I couldn't fully hear. I moved forward, flashlight beam trembling, illuminating shapes further along the walls. Bodies fused into concrete, mouths stretched wide in silent screams, eyes hollowed out into endless darkness. Arms reached out desperately, frozen in place as if they'd been trying to escape. But they weren't dead. They were singing. I ran. The corridor narrowed, air thinning, lights flickering. The humming became chanting, louder, more insistent. At the tunnel's end stood a melted steel door, leaning off its hinges. Beyond it, the earth had been hollowed out, a raw, gaping shaft carved directly into the rock. Thick black vines coiled around the edges, writhing slowly. At the bottom, something opened wide in the earth itself, a deep, yawning pit, the singing hole. From its dark throat, a melody rose, alien yet familiar. And then, within it, a voice clearer than any other. My daughter's voice, singing softly, pulling me closer, calling my name. The singing hole breathed, not metaphorically, literally. I could feel its wet, rhythmic exhale washing across my face, warm and sickeningly sweet, carrying whispers in a language older than humanity. Below, vines shifted like veins beneath skin, alive with slow, purposeful movement. At the edge of the hole, the floor was soft, slick, almost flesh-like. Then I heard it clearly again. My daughter's voice drifting upward from that pit, singing softly, calmly. "Daddy, come down. We've been waiting." My heart seized. Fear surged through me, primal and raw. Every fiber of my body screamed for me to turn and run, but I couldn't. Not without her. "Stay there," I called weakly, my voice cracking. "I'm coming." I descended into the pit, sliding carefully down its sloped, organic surface. With every inch deeper, the air thickened, choking my lungs with its sweetness, my skin prickling as if touched by 1,000 tiny needles. At the bottom, my boots sank into a floor that pulsed faintly beneath me. Dark vines reached up, gently wrapping around my ankles, caressing rather than restraining. The humming filled every cell of my body now, becoming the blood that pumped through my veins. And there she was. My daughter stood at the center of a wide, circular chamber, eyes closed, her small mouth open, gently humming the melody I'd heard a lifetime ago, beneath Area 51. Around her, others stood frozen, fused, half-formed into the walls, mouths agape, singing endlessly. But it was the symbol etched into the floor beneath her that stole my breath. 3 interlocking triangles, circled by countless ancient runes. The mark from my maintenance badge. The symbol of those who'd built Dreamland, who had imprisoned this ancient thing below Area 51. And finally, I understood. It wasn't imprisoned to protect us. It was preserved to someday be awakened. "Welcome home, Danny." The voice echoed from shadows beyond my daughter. I spun, flashlight trembling in my hands. A figure stepped into the dim, pulsing glow, a face I'd seen decades before. My old supervisor from Area 51, unchanged by the years, eyes sunken and dark. "You?" I choked out. He smiled thinly, emotionless. "You didn't really think you could escape this, did you? It's in your blood, Danny. Has been for generations. Your father, your grandfather, they all helped preserve this moment." My breath caught sharply. "What do you mean?" He gestured toward my daughter. "She was always meant to be here. The seed requires nourishment, blood, a voice to awaken it fully. Your family was bred specifically for this purpose." I shook my head violently. "No, this isn't possible. Let her go." He sighed softly, stepping forward. "You misunderstand, Danny. We're not hurting her. We're elevating her, preserving humanity through unity. The choir is perfection. No pain, no fear, only harmony. The Illuminated have always known this." "Illuminated?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Yes," he said, smiling sadly. "The Illuminati, keepers of the seed, architects of Dreamland, preservers of the choir." He raised his hands, and the walls pulsed faster, the voices rising. "You've resisted for so long, but now you understand. It's time." I looked desperately at my daughter. Her eyes fluttered open, calm, unafraid. "Daddy," she whispered softly. "It doesn't hurt. It's beautiful." My chest tightened, agony slicing through me. They'd taken everything, my life, my family, and now, my little girl. I couldn't let them have her. "Take me," I pleaded. "Please, I'll join your damned choir. Just let her go." He shook his head gently. "The choice isn't yours. The seed chose her. Your blood was just the path." I sank to my knees, tears streaming down my face, mixing with the sweat pouring down my skin. But then, as I knelt there, broken, something stirred inside me. An old memory, a distant echo of a chant heard decades ago in those forgotten tunnels. "Sanguinem conservare." Preserve the blood. My blood. The seed needed my bloodline, my daughter, to fully awaken. But without her, without the blood, I lunged forward, grabbing her, pulling her away from the symbol. Instantly, pain exploded through my body. Vines lashed out, slicing deep into my skin, draining me even as I pushed her upward toward the opening above. "Climb!" I screamed, shoving her upward as the vines tightened, pulling me downward. She scrambled upward, sobbing now, confusion and fear finally breaking through whatever spell they'd cast on her. The humming became screaming. The choir twisted in agony, as if my defiance was poison. Blood poured from my wounds, soaking the floor, spreading across the ancient symbol. My supervisor watched impassively, almost sadly, as if expecting this. "You can't stop what's inevitable, Danny." But I didn't care. My daughter was escaping. She'd live. The singing hole tightened around me, vines pulling me into the flesh of the earth, fusing me into its core. Pain gave way to warmth, darkness, peace. My last thought was of my daughter, escaping to daylight, away from Dreamland, away from the choir. And the last sound I heard was my own voice joining the endless harmony beneath Area 51, preserved forever, singing.